Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Galesburg, Illinois. And we have got a great show for you today, the magical powers of tree identification. Oh, you're going to want to hear this one. It is going to be fun. We're going to be talking about how do you learn to identify trees. It's going to be great. And you know I'm not doing this by myself. I am joined, as always, every single week by horticulture educator Ken Johnson. He's in Jacksonville still, right, Ken?
Yes, I am still in Jacksonville, and I'm not sure I'm going to contribute this much to this week's podcast because I do not have this magical ability.
Oh, but then at the very end of the show, you will have gained like an apprenticeship's level, like in the sorcerer's apprenticeship, that yes, you can really wow people at the party. I mean, so Ken, you wow people at the party with your insect skills. Wait until you start talking about trees.
My Hogwarts equivalent to Tree ID School is going to be coming.
Yes. Well, hope you don't mind being in Hufflepuff today, because that's my school of choice. So, Ken, I don't think we can do this by ourselves. We need to have a special guest for this one. So we are also joined by horticulture educator Sarah Vogel, educator. Sarah, welcome to the show, and thank you for being our wizard master to guide us through this today.
Yes, indeed. Thank you guys for having me. And I'll be sure to get some quiz questions, pop quiz questions for Ken at the end. We'll get him in there. Try and stump him.
Good thing I'm editing this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, Ken, we will get you next time. We have done that before. I have actually done a pop quiz one time, and I surprised Ken the pop quiz before live on the show, but not today. Next time.
Sure, we'll go easy. Sure.
I got you, Sarah. Next time we're doing this. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess when it comes to tree identification, there is a lot that we need to know, but I suppose the first question is, Sarah, why is this so important? Why do we really need to know what tree is which? Aren't they all just trees?
Well, Chris, I am so glad that you asked. Certainly, they are all trees. All trees are trees. That is true, backed up by science. Like many things in the horticultural world, for many of us, it starts as a hobby or an interest and then becomes, more than that, or maybe a career, and then potentially it consumes your soul. So that's where I am in my life. I hope to drag others along with me, because people love trees, right? They are these great big elements in our landscape. They take up a lot of space. They last a long time, or at least hopefully. They provide a lot of benefits, to wildlife, or maybe shade your house and help you save on energy costs. Sometimes trees are sentimentally valuable, and sometimes they cost a lot of money if we have to remove one. So we want to know what trees maybe already are in our yards so we know how to care for them. And maybe if you're planting a new tree, we can talk about species requirements, right plant for the right site. I think Extension does a really good job of staff and volunteers of hammering home that right plant for the right site. So, you want to know what the requirements, the care requirements are for a species, because if you maybe you're getting ready to plant one and you pick out a species that you think it's pretty, or it smells good, or you just like the look of it, whatever. For instance, if you have that species and it prefers shade, but you place it in a full sun area, that tree is going to become stressed, and you may begin to see like leaf scorch or other symptoms show up. So if you don't identify your trees accurately, that could cause for maybe improper care and even long-term, damage and decline. And it's good to know too what you have in your yard, so not only you know how to take care of it, but what it's susceptible to. So if it does get stressed out, we want to know what species it is so we know what pests or disease might come along and be an affliction for that tree.
Yeah, that last one, that too, it's usually where we start when someone's calling the office, because they don't call us because the tree's doing great. They call us because there's a problem. And so step one is correctly identifying that tree, knowing that susceptibility to whatever ailment or symptom that they're seeing occurring there. So it is very important in that diagnosis world.
Absolutely. Yeah, you both know how many tree problem photos and questions that we are sent, and it's it gets tough, right? Especially for more mature trees, like oh, this beautiful 100-year oak has been here so long, we want to save it. Um, a lot of times with more mature trees, we don't know the whole history on that. Certainly, we can't accurately digitally diagnose, but some things. Um, but sometimes when it's a younger tree, we can help at least narrow it down for people.
All right. So tree ID. Do you remember the first tree you learned to identify?
Um, so yes, I remember a couple of instances. In like my younger childhood, I grew up in a pretty urban environment, and so tree of heaven was everywhere, in alleyways and all kinds of places. So I do recall as a kid like stripping the leaflets off that great big long rachis, the big long leaves,
Mhm.
and that maybe a lot are familiar. It has a very distinct smell.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and coincidentally also called stink tree. So I kind of remember that as a kid, but the first tree I learned to identify on purpose was actually a pawpaw for a third grade leaf collection project. So I rarely miss that one. That one rarely gets me, especially if it has leaves or fruit or any of those other identifying characteristics on. Pawpaw has that big leaf, smooth edges, and a pointed tip. And I remember too that tree was producing fruit, which also has a very distinct sweet smell. And pawpaw happens to be North America's largest native tree fruit. So it's kind of a fun little fact for everybody. And then I wanted to share because you guys might, as co-nerds, I thought you guys might appreciate that. When I transferred to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale to get my bachelor's in forestry, the first required class was a fall tree ID course, right? Um, so I not only remember like being out in a lot of those sites with the professor or the TA, describing species, talking about them, um, but I also still have my original tree identification flashcards. This from 23 years ago. Okay. You're impressed. The hoarding runs in my genes in my family, so I have to actively fight against those, but not with educational stuff. So I have the common name on the front there and the family genus species on the back, which for flowering dogwood is actually not a very good example because the taxonomy changed on that one. So they're not all still good, but it is kind of fun to look back on some of those things and uh, just remember how hard we worked to remember some of those Latin names.
Well, Sarah, I don't think I knew you down in Carpendale 23 years ago, but I was also there. And I remember I also took a fall tree ID course, and there was the landscape students, which was me, and then there was forestry students. And we were all so happy we were not forestry students doing the tree ID course because you guys go hardcore. Like, professor goes out, strips all the leaves off, and is like, here you go, identify this. And they have a deer nibble on it or something. Or like, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, that's
yeah.
a hardcore course. So, yeah.
It was hard, like I don't know, just a lot to memorize, a lot of
Mhm.
categorization and things like that. And yeah, and then the physical characteristics. And it was so our final exam, it was a great class because we were required to go visit all these beautiful natural areas and find
Mhm.
trees, both native and introduced. So, like, how are you not going to get a good grade in that, right? You get to just travel around to cool places. But the final exam was in December. So, that is
Yep.
challenging. That can be very challenging. So we really had to study hard for that. And I'm still not perfect at it. Like I hope to get better at evergreen identification, maybe work up like a winter tree ID thing that would be offered to the general public as well.
I'd say my brain got full once we got to Quercus, and then viburnum. What's that? I have no idea. That there was just no more room by that point in the semester.
Oh
So
yeah, there's
because we
like
went
so many of them.
alphabetical. Yeah. Oh man. We started
Yeah.
Acer, which is I don't think maples are Acer anymore, are they? Or did they get moved
Um,
into a different family, maybe?
the different family like
Yeah.
Sapendales or Sapendales or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Sapendales.
Um,
So
yes, it moved to a different family. The taxonomy changed on that one too. And it's honestly, even now, the programs that we, crank out all the time, it's hard to keep up on some of that stuff. So um, it takes a little bit of research every time we go out and do some of these programs.
well, Ken, did you take a tree ID class when you were in school?
I I had botany.
Good. Okay. That works. So you could identify trees. Like that's a tree, that's a moss.
No, we did.
You learned what a leaf was, more
Yes.
like
No,
it.
we had to do a leaf collection and plant
Oh, okay.
collection, and I got rid of that. That class scarred me.
So you burned those in a very hot fire. Okay. So I guess for getting started in Tree ID, so Ken can start his new pile of note cards. Um, what are some of the basics to beginning this skill? I guess it's like a muscle that you flex because I feel like if you don't use it, you can't really build it. So what are some of those basic things that you need to do when it comes to identifying trees?
Yeah, sure. You're right. If you don't use it, it does kind of go away. It's just not as familiar. And on the other end of that spectrum, if you work somewhere where you see one species over and over and over, you will never forget what that species looks like. You'll recognize it in the winter. You'll recognize a branch. You'll look at the bottom of a trunk and know what it is. So, um, such are the days in tree nursery work. So basics in identifying trees, I think most people probably go straight for the leaf shape, which is obviously pretty helpful. Another thing that we look at is leaf arrangement. So do leaves originate, let me get my prop here, do leaves originate in oppositely off of the stem? So we have this little maple tree here, and you can see possibly that the leaves are coming out right across from each other on the stem. So that is opposite arrangement, where other trees will have alternate arrangement. So you get this honey locust. Maybe I'll send you a picture of it. And it has alternate arrangement where the buds and the leaves originate kind of alternately on the stem, hence the name. So that's one of the first things that we look at least in tree ID, because that will narrow down your what species it is pretty quickly. There's only a handful of trees that are opposite that are here in central Illinois. So when we get into the shrub world, that's a different story. But if we're just talking about trees, leaf arrangement is very helpful. We also, I always like to point out the bark. When we go out and do tree ID walks, I want people to know a opposite from alternate, a simple from a compound leaf. I want them to be able to identify the tree in the winter. Like that's the goal, right? Be able to identify this tree without leaves. And so I oftentimes point out the bark, or the twig and the bud, or the flowers or the fruit, whatever is around there. And I get like, okay, all right, Sarah, bark is bark, right? But people often, I think they don't realize maybe that they know more characteristics about trees than they think. So, for instance, if there were no leaves on a sycamore tree, um, one might still identify it through that camouflage bark. Or even in the wintertime when there's no leaves on the kind of white treetop in the forest of more mature sycamore trees. Um, or another example might be like, oh, I don't know much about tree IDs, but in early spring, I guarantee that most people recognize a redbud tree from far away because it's, the thank heavens the first color in spring, right along with those forsythia shrubs. Um, some other characteristics, when you start to get really good at tree identification or a little more practiced even, you can tell from afar what some trees are based purely on the shape or maybe the growth habit of that species. I'm thinking of maybe a pin oak, even with no leaves. From far away, you can see that straight central leader, very uniform pyramidal architecture and those bottom branches that kind of point downward. Pretty easy to spot right away once you know what you're looking for. And the same goes for other species, whatever shapes they might have. If you see one that's split right down the middle, it's probably a pear tree or, or a silver maple. We like to pick on the Callery pear for being invasive. What else? I think that's because people don't know what they actually really know deep down, but things that we've just learned along the way. So I think that's what makes something like Winter Tree ID really challenging and fun. We kind of challenge ourselves to see like what we really know. Evergreens are pretty easy to spot then too.
So are there tools and stuff that can help? Like when I do tree ID, one of the things I always struggle with when they talk about like the leaf edges, the serrations and stuff, like just differentiating like all those different types. Because after a while, to me, a lot of them they look the same, and like there's these little subtle differences that to me is like, yeah, that's the same. And other people like, yeah, a bug's a bug. What's the difference? But
I'm trying to keep the tears in. Really make me upset. Everything just looks the same. We all look the same. Yeah, there are lots and lots of different helpers out there. I mean, of course, you can come right to Extension and ask us for help with identification, or you can ask our Master Gardener volunteers. But if you're out there in the field on your own, there are some different little guides here. For one, we have like an Arbor Day Foundation. What tree is this? It's a smaller book, so it doesn't have quite as many species, but it does have good illustrations in it. And we know that it can't have that many species in it because the first part of the dichotomy key is, do you live in the east? Do you live east of the Rocky Mountains or west of the Rocky Mountains? So if it has all of those trees, we're probably not going to get every species that we actually have here on the ground. In a field guide, a dichotomy key is a series of questions. If this, then jump to the next one. If not, then it's something else. That's not a very good way to describe it, but it's a systematic way, kind of yes or no answers to narrow down what species you're talking about. And it'll be, does this have opposite or alternate leaf arrangement? If opposite, go to such and such page. And if alternate, go to the other. So they are really handy. So that Arbor Day Foundation book is really good. We have a couple iterations of the Forest Trees of Illinois. This is what the most recent publication looks like that you can find. This is my one from college. I still use it when we go out for tree ID. This is probably one of the first editions that I have just for kicks. And so those are really good. I like the Forest Trees for Illinois, especially some of the newer editions. It has not only like the dichotomy key to get you through keying out one of the species, a species that you're looking at, but it has all of that stuff that Ken was talking about, the leaf shape, what different, the physical characteristics are, what some of the fruits are called, and so on. And another really cool thing about this book is that it has seasonal tree identification. So it has kind of a fall tree ID and summer and winter and all that stuff too. So spring, summer, and autumn. So not winter. I lied. But it does have both native trees and introduced trees. It has where that species may be located in the state, which I think is really helpful. So excellent resource. There is also, so that's for identification. There's one other resource that I'd like to mention because we get all of those questions coming in. What's wrong with my tree? This is not necessarily for identification, but the USDA Forest Service puts out a tree owner's manual that is incredibly helpful for anybody that has a tree they are trying to care for. Let's see, what other ones? Oh, even ones for kids identifying trees. The Illinois Department of Natural Resources has a fun little coloring and activity book of Illinois trees, and that even comes in Spanish. So a lot of times I'll take that out to some of the programs we have. And same things, it has some of those leaf shapes, what the margins might be, and really just introducing those basics to youth which is amazing for me. That's what, to me, this job is all about. Or even jobs before this is like, I get, you know, 30 kids. And if like one of them walks away and they're excited about an acorn, I'm like, yes, this is a successful program, that has sunk into that youth and hopefully, made that a little more connection with nature. If they learn about it, oftentimes they appreciate it more and take care of more things like that. So making that connection is really important to me, especially with young people, but all ages.
So do you have a favorite mnemonic device that you use for tree ID?
Oh, well, I have lots of weird ones, okay? Like in my own head, like northern red oak is Quercus rubra. Rubra means red. Uh, but the acorn cap is very shallow and it kind of looks like beret. So I think of red beret, raspberry beret, because I'm a Prince fan. Um, that's a weird one that I have. But a lot of people, so for the opposite alternate leaf arrangement, the mad buck horse mnemonic device. So mad would be maple ash dogwood, buck would be buckeye, and horse is horse chestnut. So those things are the oppositely arranged tree species that we are pretty common, around Illinois. There are also, a lot of people use apps for identifying, and I used to be a little more gatekeepy about it, but I've made my peace and I'm fine. It's fine. I use them too. They're really helpful and they're in our pocket.
It's true. It's not
Yeah.
cheating.
No,
It
no.
helps.
Yeah, it totally helps. And I think the important part is like, don't go with the first answer you get, right? Use more than one app or take a few different pictures, double check it by, searching that species name. When you're doing internet searches, maybe put in extension or .edu so you're getting good results, accurate results. So yeah, those I am all for apps, and even some of those like iNaturalist and some others, I think, report to each other, and you can report invasive species or different pests and things like that. So it's also kind of a community that you can join with too. Citizen science, I think that's the term I'm thinking of.
Well, Sarah, you had mentioned Quercus rubra, and maybe we've skirted around this a little bit, but we have common names and we have scientific names. A lot of times people, they're not too pleased about having to learn a Latin name for a plant, or it might feel a little intimidating. So is that necessary when we are doing tree identification to learn the Latin name?
I mean, if you're in my class, yes, absolutely. If I'm grading you,
Yeah.
you better.
You better. Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course not. I mean, beginners are not going to know, you know, let alone the terminology for some of those plant parts, like plant anatomy, which in a tree ID guide might be really important. If you don't know the terminology of a sepal and a whatever, then it might be challenging. So
Mhm.
starting out that way, but Latin names will also help us avoid kind of just confusion between plant species. The the scientific name, which can be derived from both Latin and Greek, is the universal name for that species. Like across languages, across countries, that is the name for that species. So um, when we hear common names, like for instance, I've heard a couple different species called a tulip tree. And I always try to clarify, are you talking about a saucer magnolia or a tulip poplar or yellow poplar? Because both of those things are kind of interchangeable to people. So, the tulip poplar is Liriodendron tulipifera. Tulip's right there in the name. Um, and the magnolia is like a hybrid. I forgot Solangiana or something like that. But what I think is really cool, why I nerd out over scientific names, is because often they are descriptors of the species. So I mentioned Quercus rubra, it might be rubrum now that I'm thinking about it. So Quercus alba, Quercus is going to be an oak. Alba means white, so that's our white oak. Um, I had probably a few more examples, but I don't remember them right now. We mentioned a viburnum earlier and how there's so many of those. Um, there is the leather leaf viburnum, or is that the same as double file, I think? So that one is viburnum, is the genus name, the first and the two-part name. And the second part of the name, the species or specific epithet, is Rhytidophyllum. And rhytid means wrinkly, and phylum means leaf. So it's a viburnum with wrinkly leaves. And if you look at it, it is a very textured leaf that you might say looked wrinkly. So I think that's why they're cool. I get very curious when I see anything Latin, the etymology or root words in that, because it's a descriptor. And it goes, I mean, the English language and other Latin-based languages, you kind of know what some of those things are because we've been speaking it for most of our lives.
It's true. So of these Latin names, I sometimes they roll off your tongue really easily, sometimes they don't. But do you have a particular favorite Latin name, either maybe just to say, or maybe it's a favorite tree of yours?
You know, Metasequoia glyptostroboides is a really good one. It just right off the tongue. We don't get a lot of that one around here.
Mhm.
What is that? Douglas fir or redwood? Oh, golly.
Dawn redwood. Mhm.
Yeah, redwood. See, shows what I know. Around here, we see probably one of my favorites is the scientific name for sweet gum is liquid ambar styrosiflua. And I'll even spell it right if you challenge me.
Oh my gosh, that scares me. Well,
Only to write it down. We can't do that on a webinar podcast.
that's right. I would say so I had Doc Henry when I was down in Carbondale, and he was from North Carolina. So all of my Latin has a twang. So you said, I don't even know how you said uh, styraciflua. Is it I styraciflua? Yeah, but
Styrosiflua.
styraciflua. But I remember Liriodendron tulipifera. Like all of my Latin has little twanginess to it. Metasequoia glyptostroboides. It's kind of there, but yeah, so I kind of you're learning a different language. I feel like when you're learning some of these plant names, and so whoever your teacher is, you kind of glean some of their speech patterns off of that. So uh,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I remember like being in a spot with my professor or the TA, and now I see that very same TA at a lot of the professional development opportunities we go to, and where I present to them. And you want to talk about imposter syndrome, you guys? Whoa, whoa. But it's just kind of cool. Yeah, it sinks in, and especially when we're there to learn. Like if somebody drugged me to a tree ID and I program and I didn't want to know anything about it, me, you know. But if you're into it and you want to learn more about it, there's lots of ways to do it. And you too would probably nerd out. Many people would nerd out on the scientific names.
do you have a favorite scientific name, Ken? Of anything, bug, tree, plant? Pop quiz. Who's coming? Here it is.
Off the top of my head, nothing's coming to mind. Sure, I'll report back later.
He's editing this week, so he's going to pop
Yeah.
something in there. I just know
Yeah, just cover your mouth and you can voice it over.
it. Oh,
Pinus strobus. There you go. Yes.
I did read
Real-
somewhere Pinus is not like how Romans would have pronounced it.
mhm.
It should be
How would they have pronounced it, Ken?
should be penis
Okay.
if you do it technically correct. Is
Too
what
bad.
I've heard.
Well,
The kids
gotta-
love when I do that.
yes. And this is the first time we'll ever have to check the explicit box for the podcast.
So scientific.
Yep, that's us. Well, Sarah, it was mentioned before, like, this is something to do that you have to do multiple times to learn the more you do it, the better you are at it. So I know every year you offer classes, like you will go out, do tree walks with groups of people. So are you doing that again this year?
Yes, absolutely. I'll be doing some tree ID walks this fall. I like to do those in the fall because The leaves are generally all the way to their mature size, and most tree species have set bud, so you can kind of look at their bud, which is boy, when you start looking at 20 different oak species, that bud is really important. So I don't teach 20 different oak species. We'll put that out there at the get-go, because then I wouldn't be able to fake some of them. But yeah, I'll have some tree ID walks this fall, mostly around Central Illinois. So keep an eye on our extension Facebook page, or I'm out of DeWitt, Macon, and Piatt County, so you can keep an eye on our page there too. We'll also have some community tree care opportunities, whether that's workshops this fall or possibly more of the webinar series in the spring, or probably winter, like January to March range. And community tree care is a program that is designed for not only certified arborists who are already professionals working out there in the field, but those professionals doing tree care that aren't necessarily certified, as well as a general audience. So we have a lot of really good information in those, and do offer arborist CEUs for those professionals who might need them. But you can really learn a lot, and we're each year really building that curricula and community tree care to include more stuff.
All right. Anything else to add then before we close her out?
Nope. I didn't hear you want to see the skeletonized leaves on this. It used to be a crab apple, but it's reverted back to a regular apple. That is, I don't know how well you can see it, but totally
Nice.
skeletonized. Yeah.
Wow.
That might be fun to show. No, I don't have anything else to share. I appreciate you guys trying to stump me.
Do you want to do a quick recap if you go out, find a tree? Kind of the real quick process. Do you have a process
Yes.
of, here's a new tree, this is what I do?
Yeah, I just look at it. Duh.
Look at it, taste it, and see how I feel afterwards.
Yeah. I don't do mushroom ID just for that reason. So yeah, if you're going out on your own to try and identify a tree species, take your field guide, take your phone. You can, use the app out there in the field. But if you want to, do it the prehistoric way, like we professionals, look first at your leaf arrangement. So opposite or alternate, that's going to narrow a lot of things down for you. You'll also want to know maybe the leaf complexity. So for instance, our maple leaf, that is one leaf, that is one simple leaf. A compound leaf would be something like this honey locust leaf that is falling apart as I touch it. But that is one honey locust leaf with individual little leaflets on there. So that's kind of something that you'll look for too. Some will ask, how do you know if this is a leaf or a leaflet? How do you know? Well, where the stem attaches to the twig, there will be a bud in there, especially later in the year. So yeah, opposite or alternate, simple or compound leaves. Look at everything you can. It's not just about the leaves. Look at the bark, look around on the ground for fruit. You mentioned, I mentioned distinct smells. You mentioned tasting things. So like if you run into a sassafras, run into a tree that may be sassafras, you tasted it and it tastes like Fruit Loops a little bit. You might be right about that one. So yeah, just using all the senses.
Yep. The tree of heaven, as you mentioned before. Whew, I know, and I've brushed up against that one.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. Well, there are some trees too that it's kind of like the cilantro deal. Like some people really like it and some people hate it. Like maybe it's a genetic thing. I don't know. But Abies concolor, white fir, that's one of my favorite trees. I know it's not, native to our area, but some people think it smells really good, like kind of like oranges or citrus. And some people think it smells like cat pee. So yeah, it just depends on, I guess, your own body chemistry.
And if you have cats around.
Yeah. And if you have, it totally could be. Yeah.
Oh. Well, that was a lot of great information about getting started with tree identification. Well, I think it's time to crack open the old dichotomous key and go outside and get to work and identify some trees. The Good Growing Podcast is a production of University of Illinois Extension, edited this week by Ken Johnson. A thank you to our special guest today, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us from Decatur to give us the good info of teaching us and becoming apprentices of your wizardly ways of tree identification. So thank you very much.
I'll send your certificates in the mail.
Excellent. I will have my graduation cap on when I receive it, because I wear it all the time at home. And Ken, thank you so much for being with us, as always, every single week.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. I will start studying and try not to let you down. I'll earn
That's
that
right.
certificate.
You better. Yeah, I'll remember that. Thanks, guys.
And Chris, thank you as always. And let's do this again next week.
Oh, we shall do this again next week. Raised bed gardening. We're going to talk about it. Can you do it? What do you do when you're doing it? And then how to build them their raised beds and grow in them their raised beds. It's going to be an interesting, informative show next week about raised beds. Raised beds. I've said that many times. So hopefully the algorithms pick that up, because I think it's popular right now. Anyway, well, listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing. Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Galesburg, Illinois. I guess I sounded surprised when I said that. But yes, I am in Galesburg. I am not surprised. I drove myself here. So I know where I am at all times. So see, I did it again. I screwed it up.
I'm just impressed that you know where you are all the time. Chalk one up.
So I don't always know who I am, though. But yeah. I usually got good geographic skills. Yeah.
So somebody's got a tree that they don't know what it is, or maybe somebody's brought a tree into the extension office and the person trying to figure out what the problem is doesn't know what the tree is. I guess, hold on. Sorry,
Sure.
I was reading the wrong question.
Oh, go for it, Ken.
Look at that.
Any of
like
them.
it.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Except for the fourth one, because I took that one out.
So we want to go with the basics, or do we want to do the first tree?
I'd
First
say
tree.
go with the basics.
Oh, sure.
You-
All right.
Oh, no, yeah, or yeah,
First tree.
whatever you want.
First
Ken.
tree.
You
Okay.
just had a great intro to that one, Ken. I loved it. You had me
Well,
Oscar worthy. So
That'll go in,
Yeah, we can go right to
Nominating
number
you.
3.
that'll go in the
Loop back.
bloopers.